Hi, so in this video I want to give you some tips on how the charging works in your e-Golf. Now I know what you're thinking, you just plug it in, but it's a little bit more, well there's a little bit more to learn I would say. If you're new to EVs or you're thinking about getting an e-Golf or you've just got it, you're going to get a lot from this video. I think if you've had your e-Golf for a long time, you're still going to learn a thing or two. So let's get started. Now there's a couple of things I want to mention before we start, and I want to keep things simple. I'm not an electrician, and I think it's kind of important to petrol and diesel car is simple. You put the nozzle in and it fills it up and you drive away. EVs are a little bit more complicated. There's a little bit more going on in the background, but it should be simple too. So there's two types of electricity. You've got alternating current, known as AC, and that basically does that. And then you've got direct current, which is known as DC, and that just basically does that. See, I said I'd keep it simple. So your car runs on DC. Now DC is direct current, and what that means is when you charge your car at home, for instance, you're actually putting AC into the car and it needs to convert that to DC. Now this information will become more relevant slightly later, but for now let's go and look at the chargers. So when you think of chargers for your car, you probably think of something like this. So here's our Tesla charger, which incidentally will charge the Tesla and the Golf. That's perhaps for another video. And then here we have our EO charger, which we use for the Golf. Now, these aren't actually chargers. What these do is they enable us to put lots of electricity into our car safely. This is actually called a Tesla wall connector, and that's probably a better definition of what it's doing than actually a charger. I mean, this is called a charger, but it's also a wall connector. What many EV owners don't know is that the chargers aren't here, the charger is actually in here. Right, so let's have a little look at the charger. It's a long time since I've opened a bonnet. Wow. Now, if you've not seen under the bonnet of an electric vehicle before, it's worth noting that this will perhaps look different to many EVs, because this isn't a purpose-built EV. This is a conversion of a normal Golf. So here's your normal battery, which you're probably quite familiar with. This is the charger. So the charger isn't actually in the things that I showed you on the walls. The charger's actually here. I think this might have something to do with it as well. Now, to be completely honest, I don't know a lot about this part in here, but I know that one of these is the charger for the car, if not both of them. Now, if you're like me, the only time you're gonna raise the bonnet on your e-Golf is gonna be to put the washer fluid in, really. There's not a lot to do underneath there, to be honest. But it's worth knowing what charger you've got on board the car, not just for the e-Golf, or any EV really, because that can help you make really good decisions about how you're gonna charge the car. So, as I've mentioned, the car runs on DC, direct current, but it will only convert 7.2 kilowatts of AC into DC. So what that means is when it's plugged in outside, these are 7.2 kilowatt chargers, it will take all the electricity and convert that into DC, but that's the most it will do. With DC, direct current, it can take up to 40 kilowatts of power. It's good to know that as well, and that will become evident later as to why you should know that. Now, when you're charging the car on AC, let's just come in and we'll have a look. You're going to be using this one here, and then when you're charging on DC, fast charge, rapid charging, you whip that out and you get a bigger plug which covers sort of both of those. Now, when it comes to slow charging, sometimes called sort of granny charging, you're going to be, in most cases, using a 3-pin plug. Now, in the car, you will get a bag with 2 cables in. One of these is your granny cable. So this is the granny cable. This one's never been used. On one end is a 3-pin socket. On the other end is the charging lead, the plug that goes into the car, basically. In the middle is this really rather compact device which kind of helps keep things safe and shows you the status of the charging, really. Now, if you're using an extension lead with your charging lead on a 3-pin, if any of it's outside, just make sure you use one of these. The other thing to consider is make sure that your charger, your extension lead, sorry, is rated high enough for the charge. So I would say, now I'm not an electrician, so don't take my word for this, but I would say that your reel needs to be at least 10 amps, if not higher. The other thing to know is that when you're using a reel, you need to fully extend it. The reason being is the cable gets warm. What happens then is, when it's in the reel, there's not enough area for the heat to escape, and you can end up overheating, and you'll end up potentially with something like this. Now, don't let me put you off about charging at home with your granny cable. I mean, I would suggest, if you're using a granny cable, just an outdoor socket and your cable. But if you're going to use an extension lead, just make sure it's a really good one and you're using it properly. So when it comes to charging on a 3-pin socket, for the lay people amongst us, here's kind of a visual representation of what slow charging is. Oh, hello, how you doing? Family well? I was going that way, wasn't I? All the best. So when slow charging, like this, I mean, you're probably going to be charging the car at about 9 miles an hour. So that could be 16 hours from a 0 charge to a full charge. Now, most of the time your car isn't going to be at 0%. So if you're arriving home at 6 or 7 p.m. and you're leaving at 6 or 7 a.m, then I would say that's going to be more than enough, or enough for you. Although we've got a fast charger, I mean, I'm not sure we actually need it. We could have perhaps just used a 3-pin and granny cable. Now, the advantages of a fast charger is it's generally more convenient. So rather than having to get the cable out of the back of the car each time we want to charge, we just unplug it from the charging unit and stick it in the car. So fast charging at home is really easy. You'll either have a tethered unit, like ours, and that means it's got the lead already on it. The advantage of that is, as I've mentioned, you haven't got to get your lead out the boot, or you'll have an untethered charger, which you use your lead out the boot. The advantage of that is that all the ends that go into the charger are the same, but not all the ends that go into different cars are the same. So some people think by having an untethered charger, they're kind of future-proofing things. So if they change cars, they haven't got to change the charging unit, for instance. But if you've got a Type 2 home charger, like we have, and you've got an e-Golf, I mean, I would get a tethered one. It's this easy. So you just unplug the unit, and then you just plug it in the car. So home chargers are destination chargers. So that means you've arrived at your destination, i.e. your house or someone else's house, and you charge your car. So other places where you'll see destination chargers are supermarkets, shopping centres, public car parks. So you can just arrive and just top up. Most of the time they'll be free. I know they are where we live. Now, I've got a top tip for you. So if you're booking a weekend away, if you're using somewhere like booking.com, for instance, now where you would normally filter, I want a gym or I want a swimming pool, open that area up and then you can filter, I want EV charging. and then that way you'll have charging at your destination, which means you won't have to find a charger. I mean, this is a little bit naughty, but I'd also then ring them and see if they can get a better rate than booking.com, but you didn't hear that from me. So fast charging will charge your e-Golf at about 26 miles per hour. So that's from empty to a full charge in about 5 hours. I mean, that is, well, I would say that's plenty. If you're doing more than say 100 or 120 miles a day, you're nipping out maybe the school runs and things like that, then you just put it on charge in between and it just keeps it topped up for you. So for the layperson, here is an idea of what fast home charging is. So before we move on, I'd just like to say, if you're a man aged between 25 and 54, then please hit the like button, because you make up 99.1% of my audience. That's right, 99.1% of my audience are men aged between 25 and 54. For that 1, 2, 3 ladies out there, please let me know, because I've not been this unpopular with the ladies since high school. If you're a lady watching this channel, then just let me know in the comments, because as much as I appreciate the guys, I mean, it's just quite one-sided. And if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe, because 85% of you that watch my videos aren't subscribed. Now, people will talk about how much money they save with electric vehicles. I mean, we were putting £235 worth of diesel in our X5. When we first got our first EV, which was a Tesla, that figure went down to £68 a month. And then through a little bit of jiggery pokery, I took that down to about £25, £30 a month. So we've knocked over £200 off of the fuel bill of one car. And now we've got the e-Golf, it's basically the same again. So how much does it cost to run your e-Golf for 1,000 miles? That's probably a good way to kind of work it out. Now, what you'll need to know to do that is your tariff of your electricity at home. So I think most people are probably paying around, say, 15p per kilowatt hour. Now, I don't know what a kilowatt hour is. Well, I didn't know what a kilowatt hour is, but I do now. So it's this simple. So if you're paying 15p per kilowatt hour and your charger is providing 7 kilowatts of power to your car, the maths is as simple as 15 times 7. Alexa, what's 15 times 7?
15 times 7 is 105.
So it's going to cost about £1.05 to charge your car for an hour, and you're going to get about 25 miles of range approximately. So that means if you times that by 4, you've got £4.20 for £100 of range. Sorry, you've got £4.20 for 100 miles of range, and £42 for 1,000 miles. So that should be a lot cheaper than what you're currently paying if you haven't got an EV yet. Now, it's worth noting that, like myself and many EV drivers, we use an overnight tariff. So I use the Octopus Go tariff, and what that means is our electricity rate drops from, I think, 14p per kilowatt to 5p per kilowatt between 12:30 a.m. and 4:30 a.m. So we get 4 hours at 5p per kilowatt. So instead of charging us £1.05 an hour to charge and get 25 miles of range, we now pay 35p for an hour to charge to get the same 25 miles of range. So if we work that out again, so 35 pence for 25 miles is, I'm not going to use you, Alexa, that's £1.40 for 100 miles. Come on, brain, come on, brain. So it's £1.40 for 100 miles. So 1,000 miles in the e-Golf will cost us about £14. I mean, that will be a bit more in the winter. It might go up to say 20 for efficiency reasons within the car, which I won't bore you with now. But that's pretty good, isn't it? So £14 or thereabouts, maybe a few pounds more to drive 1,000 miles a month in such a wonderful car. So at the end of this video, I will link you to my Octopus energy video. If you're using a fast charger, as we are, then I would say it's an excellent tariff. If you're using a grindage cable, if you're charging from a 3-pin, then I would look at another supplier that offers kind of a longer, so it might not be as cheap. You might not be paying 5p per kilowatt hour, you might be paying 8p per kilowatt hour, but the time they offer that might be longer. That could be, say, midnight till 7 a.m, I don't know. But whatever you do, don't stay on your current tariff, because although you're saving a fortune from if you were driving an ICE car, you can save even more. And with Octopus, full disclosure here, I'll put my code across the screen. If you join Octopus using my code, we'll both get a £50 credit. So yeah, I mean, I do like referring people for that reason. But if you're unhappy with that, just let me know. I'll give my £50 to charity. So rapid charging. So the rapid charging, I mean, I find rapid charging a little bit difficult, if I'm honest. I mean, but that might be because 99% of our charging is just on our drive, really. We've got a caravan in Norfolk, which we spend a lot of time at, and then we can charge there as well. So we don't really use rapid chargers very often. So with rapid chargers, there's lots of different types. I'm going to show a couple now. I mean, quite often, and for the near future at least, if you want to charge with Ionity, you're going to need an Ionity account. If you want to charge with Electric Highway, you're going to need to download that one. If you're going to use BP Charge Master, is that Ionity? I don't know. You're going to need an account for that one as well. So if you're doing a journey and you're going to be rapid charging, it's worth just having a little bit of planning. Download ZapMap. Look at the places that you're likely to stop on your journey and just make sure you've got accounts for those companies before you set off. It will just save you a little bit of pain, I think. Now, it's also worth noting that on a rapid charger, you're going to get two ends. You're going to get your CCS end and you're going to get your Type 2 end. I've got a Type 2 end here. So that's what you're used to charging with at home. And then when you arrive at the charge post, it will claim that if you use the Type 2 end, it can deliver 43 kilowatts. Now, as I mentioned before, yes, it can deliver 43 kilowatts, but your car can only take 7. So you'll be there a long time if you use the Type 2, even though that may feel more natural to you. You need to use the CCS end, and that will take advantage of your onboard 40 kilowatt charger, which means you're going to be charging a lot quicker. And what that will mean is you're going to get 75 miles of charge in about half an hour. So it's much, much quicker than charging at home. Now, on another little side note, if there's two DC chargers, and one is a 50 kilowatt and one is a 150 kilowatt, if you're able to do so, use the 50 kilowatt charger. I mean, that's good etiquette because your car can only take 40 kilowatts anyway, so use the 50 kilowatt. Leave the 150 kilowatt for somebody whose car can just take a bit more charge. Now remember, their car is not better than your car. The Golf is a fantastic EV. You may have noticed as well that when people talk about rapid charging, so I've talked about charging at home and I've given you examples from 0% to 100%. When people talk about rapid charging, they quite often will talk about 20 to 80%. Now, the reason being is, as I've mentioned, the rapid chargers are usually on a journey. Now, I think it's a good idea to arrive at a rapid charger with about 20% battery. Now, for two reasons. One, if that charger doesn't work, you've still got some battery to go to another charger. And secondly, between 20 and 80% is when your car is going to be able to accept the fastest charge. So between 20 and 80%, you're probably going to be getting the full 40 kilowatts in. It may tail off a little bit to the end, but not much. But when you go from 80 to 100%, that last 20% can take longer than the previous 60% because the car slows the charging right down to protect the batteries. It can't take a really fast charge at the top end. So if you're doing a long journey, you might be better stopping twice and doing a 20 to 80 twice, rather than just doing a 20 to 100 and then having to do a 30 or 40% charge somewhere else. I'd also say coincide your charging with meal breaks. So if you're going to be stopping for a coffee and a wee or lunch, that's the time to charge the car if you can. So for the lay person, here is a visual representation of rapid charging. So when it comes to battery health, I think batteries are a concern for a lot of people. A lot of people who don't know are ignorant to EVs. I don't mean ignorant as in a bad way, I mean they just don't know. So you hear lots of horror stories that you'll have to replace the batteries for 20 grand every 6 months, and I'm exaggerating. But people do have concerns about batteries in EVs. With the e-Golf, you've got an 8-year, 99,360 mile warranty on the battery. It's actually 160 kilometers, but that's why it's an odd number in miles. So, I mean, there isn't really much to worry about. And what they'll say is if you'll be left with at least 70% of your battery's capacity after 8 years, or as close to 100,000 miles as you can get. So don't worry about batteries. There's nothing to worry about with the batteries on these cars, but there is a way that you can kind of just perhaps keep your battery a bit healthier. Now, a lot of people in the EV world will say charge your car to 80%, which is fine if you've got a Tesla. That's what I do in my Tesla. But if you've got an e-Golf, 80% might not be enough range for you to get through your day. So I would say if you can charge your car to 80%, that's gold. If you charge your car to 90% daily, that's silver. And if you're charging to 100%, that's bronze. So bronze is still fine. If you had two identical cars, the one that's been charged to 80% after 10 years would probably have a bit more range than the one charged to 100%. But I mean, as I've mentioned, it is a shorter range car. So with our Golf, when there's snow on the ground, we charge to 100% because we just need that bit of range. In the spring, we'll charge to 90%, and in the summer, we'll charge to 80%. Now, we've got our car on a 2-year lease, so it would be easy to say, well, it's a short lease, I've got a 2 or 3 year lease, we'll just charge to 100% every single day, and then it's not my problem at the end of the term, really. I mean, as much as that's true, I think as EV owners, I think it's good to be a good custodian for the car, because with something like an e-Golf especially, the next person who's going to buy that car second-hand, now it's going back to a dealer, I'm not going to see or know that person, but the next person, it could be their first EV. So I think it's important to be a good custodian for your car, and if you can charge between 80 and 90% most of the time, I think that's a good place to be. Now also, if you've got any tips for new owners, please put them in the comments, because we are a community here. I mean, the e-Golf's a fantastic car, we love driving it, and yeah, let's help each other out. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Unlike most of my videos, this has just been mostly me talking, so thank you for staying with us. But there's a lot of information to give, so it's kind of the best way to do it, I think. Now, if you'd like to watch our other e-Golf videos, I'm just going to put some other videos up. I've got my screen on my watch, so I can just see where. So I'm going to put some more e-Golf videos there. If you're interested in the Octopus Go tariff and how you can save money, put that one there. I'll let YouTube decide, because they know you better than I know you. And they'll put a video there. And then if you haven't subscribed, please do so. I'll put the button there. Until next time.